Good afternoon, and it's an honor to present the very last bill of the day. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Health and Government Operations Committee for allowing me the opportunity to be before you today. For the record, I'm Delegate Lisa Belcastro presenting House Bill 1203, certificates of birth, marriage certificates, issuance of new certificates, sex designation. The Maryland General Assembly has acted numerous times in the past to expand access to identity documents for transgender individuals. In 2015, we passed legislation instructing the Department of Health to issue new as opposed to amended birth certificates for transgender individuals born in Maryland. In 2019, we passed legislation enabling Marylanders to access driver's license that accurately reflect their gender identity. This bill seeks to expand on the prior success that we've had in Maryland in two specific ways. First, it would allow transgender Marylanders to change their name and/or party designation on their marriage certificate. And two, it would direct MDH to issue a new certificate of birth as opposed to amended when a transgender parent changes their name or the parent designation on their child's birth certificate. In Maryland, we currently have no official standard for issuing new marriage certificates after an individual has transitioned. This absence in the law has led to confusion, not just for transgender Marylanders, but also the county clerks that are being asked to make these changes. Individuals seeking to make these changes on their marriage certificates have been told that it's impossible, or in some cases, and this is the kicker, that they have to get divorced and remarried. Obviously, really problematic. So we're seeking to address that. The second point of the bill, it's important to note that we already require MDH to issue a new birth certificate when a transgender individual changes their name and/or gender marker on their own birth certificate. However, we do not have that same requirement when the same person goes to change their name and gender marker on their child's birth certificate. You'll hear from a constituent of mine in just a moment whose family was impacted by this lapse in the law. We have a couple of amendments, a couple of sponsor amendments that the committee should have in their possession. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 addresses technical changes suggested by the OAG and concerns raised by the county clerks. While the county clerks have submitted unfavorable testimony, which you'll see, they mentioned that we met and that our discussions were productive, and it's true, they were productive. This letter also mentions that through amended language that they believe that the goals of the bill can be achieved. And we seek to do that in these amendments. So in our discussions with the clerks, they shared 3 main concerns. The first main concern involved their ability to update marriage license books due to complexities with legacy systems. The second concern involved the party responsible for issuing marriage licenses should they no longer hold their position. And 3, that third concern involved the effective date of the bill. So we've addressed all these concerns with this amendment by striking the mentioning of marriage license books. We clarified party issuance language, and we've pushed the effective date of the bill back to we pushed the effective date for the marriage license portion of the bill back to 2022, just because they wanted some more time to implement these changes. So in closing, I want to mention that every day we go about our lives and we're faced with situations where we have to present identity documents. Forcing transgender individuals to utilize an accurate identification not only outs them, but puts them in potentially unsafe situations. So by passing HB 1203, we would be protecting trans Marylanders and closing some of the gaps that still remain in Maryland law surrounding identity documents. I want to thank the committee for allowing me to present HB 1203. We respectfully ask for your favorable report. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to my panel, who will provide some important insight on the necessity of the bill.
Thank you, Delegate, for your testimony today. Our next witness is C.P. Hoffman. Good afternoon.
Hello. C.P. Hoffman, I am the legal director at Free State Justice, which is Maryland's statewide LGBTQ plus civil rights organization. We represent individuals from Maryland's LGBTQ community on a variety of legal issues affecting their gender identity or sexual orientation. And one of the huge areas that we help people with is updating their identity documents. Over the past decade, Maryland has dramatically expanded the access of transgender individuals to affirming identity documents that reflect their gender identity. But there are, as Delegate Belcastro noted, some gaps that remain. And HB 1203 really tries to fill in some of those gaps that were things that were never really intended to be left out, but just were accidentally left out through prior systems. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about why these documents are so important. When we're talking about like children's birth certificates, that we frequently have to use them to establish parentage, as primary forms of identity when we're taking children to register them for school, when you're applying for health and benefits or other benefits through the state. Sometimes when you're traveling, you have to have that birth certificate with you, especially if you're traveling internationally, so that you don't run into like a variety of problems. And if that certificate has a different name than the name that you go by, and that's on your ID, it can be a huge problem for trans individuals. Similarly, we see the same issues with marriage certificates. And again, these come up as identity documents regularly in the context of applying for health insurance benefits and other benefits through work. And we see a lot of situations where people are basically being required to out either themselves or in some cases their partners as trans in order to apply for health insurance. So we strongly ask for a favorable report on HB 1203. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Kathleen Connolly. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I am here to testify on my personal experience. I may not sound as professional as some of the other witnesses I've heard. So I sent you like 3 pages of my written testimony, which is how I originally reached out to my delegate, and hopefully you have all that to read. I'm not going to go over that again. I'm going to add to it with my own personal story and just kind of try to hit the highlights of what I was writing as far as the importance of birth certificates. I was adopted in 1968, and I did not even have a birth certificate until I was 38 years old. I had a birth registration form that only had my name and my birth date on it. And when I was 38 and tried to get a passport is when I first found out that that would not qualify me for a passport. So then I had to learn about how to get my own birth certificate, which I did. And it was about a week of time and navigation. But when I finally got my birth certificate and saw it for the first time at age 38, it had my adopted parents on there, and no one could tell that I had been adopted from that birth certificate. My husband, as I wrote to you in my written testimony, is a trans man. You cannot tell that from his birth certificate. My youngest son was adopted, and his story is in my written testimony, and you cannot tell that he was adopted from his birth certificate. And then we get to my daughter, who's 17. She has an amended birth certificate. And this is because her father is trans. And when she was born, there was another problem with her birth certificate. We got it fixed once. And then when my husband transitioned, we had to get it fixed again. And it still lists, it still says it's amended on the face of the birth certificate. So I just think that this bill would help to clarify or to fix her birth certificate. So like everybody else in our family, the birth certificate doesn't have to open the door for questions or problems or discrimination.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Rachel Smith. Good afternoon.
After several emails, Rachel's not with us today.
Rachel's not with us today. So are there any any questions for this panel? Delegate Saab.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm sorry, I may
Pleasure.
have missed when the sponsor mentioned something about the amendment. What did the amendments that she proposed would actually change the bill? I don't see them here on my floor laptop. And what is really like the discrimination part? I'm just trying to understand the bill, like the purpose of it. What are we fixing here?
So the amendments directly, we had a meeting with the county clerks and they did submit testimony unfavorable, but in that meeting with the county clerks, they believe that we can get to a place where they can implement the bill. These amendments directly address the concerns that they raised in that meeting with the county clerk. So, we're going to meet with them again after this, and hopefully everything is square and everything is good as the amendments are written now. The amendments should be in your email inbox. I'm sorry that they didn't make it to the floor system, but Melissa did send them out to you. They should be in your email. The last part, what we're trying to fix is that currently in Maryland, you are not able to change your name on your marriage certificate. So we want to make sure, we're just trying to close the gaps that exist with identity documents in Maryland. We've already fixed the issue with identity documents in terms of your driver's license and your personal birth certificate, but that we don't extend that right now to the children of trans parents, and we don't extend that to those that are looking to change their marriage certificate after if they've transitioned post-marriage. So that's what the bill is going to address.
So if I may just follow up. So I understand what you're trying to fix, but how does that affect the children by having the name, or are we changing the name or the sex on the birth certificate of?
So, okay. So what my constituent, Ms. Keneally was explaining is that her daughter has an amended birth certificate right now. And the reason for that is because her father, who is trans, went to update their birth certificate and change their name. But the daughter was then issued an amended birth certificate because her father changed their name on their birth certificate. Ms. Keneally's husband does not have an amended birth certificate for himself, but his daughter was issued an amended birth certificate when he went to change his name on his own daughter's birth certificate. So again, this is just a gap in the law and that we're looking to close.
So to
What kind of
provide
problem
an
do you
example,
I'm
if
sorry,
that
1 second.
might,
I think one question,
You're only allowed one
right,
answer,
right.
one panelist to address.
That's fine, Madam Chairman. I can speak to the sponsor.
Delegate Saab, can I ask you
Thank
to
you.
speak to the sponsor offline, please?
Yes, that's what I was just saying. I will speak to the sponsor offline and answer my last question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate Saab. I appreciate it. We do have Rachel Smith, I understand now. So Ms. Smith, are you here?
Yes, I am. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes.
My apologies. I'm new to Zoom and was waiting in the waiting area, but looks like we've got it fixed. So I'm here.
Okay, so you have 2 minutes for your testimony. Welcome to the ACO committee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so
We can
much.
get started.
Okay. Thank you so much, Delegate Belcastro, for sponsoring HB 1203. Thank you, committee members who are here today to hear our stories. Honorable delegates, my name is Rachel Renee Smith. I live in District 44. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her. It is a privilege to be speaking here today with you as a member of the trans and non-binary communities. I'm here to represent myself, not any organization. I'm also here to represent my loving wife of 9 years, our 3 beautiful children, and LGBTQ families like ours. I'm here to express my family and community's concern that Maryland law governing marriage licenses presently requires Marylanders like myself who have changed our legal name or gender after we were married to effectively out ourselves as trans every time that we were required to present our marriage license to employers, lawyers, insurance companies, numerous government employees. I would like to share with you a little bit about this. I did share a longer testimony in my written testimony, but I will just kind of skip ahead a little bit on that. It was in 2019 with the full support of my wife and the aid of volunteer lawyers organized through Free State Justice that I finally obtained orders to change my legal name and gender markers after I came out as trans. Gender. After these changes, I pursued the tedious process of communicating these to so many areas of my life, including changing all of my vital records, my diplomas from my undergrad and graduate schools, Social Security, all 3 children's birth certificates, as well as our insurance policies that protect me and my family, as well as our property and titles with MVA and that sort of thing. Over the past 5 years, I think my wife and I have changed jobs about 4 times with each change of employment. With each annual renewal or change of our employer-based health insurance plans, we were required to submit or resubmit vital records for everyone, in basically requiring This is unsafe for trans people, demoralizing, and sends the message to our state's hardworking families like ours that Maryland is not really open for business.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Are there any questions